Yeah.
It's about figuring stuff out and trying to work things out for ourselves, which is why I've just
So we've got a scientist talking here. We'll just go.
Brain-sizzing facts, awesome science questions answered, and it's all about trying to work out the answers for ourselves. So I'm going to help you to come up with the solution for how you can block a tickle, but we're going to do it together. And in order to do this is something I talk a lot about in my book, is that I need you to really believe me that science isn't about getting things right. It isn't about knowing the most or doing the best or being the most confident. It's about having a go. And it's about making mistakes. And it's about trying things and then trying again. We learn the best, the most, when we get things wrong. Can anyone tell me a really important example of a really famous scientist who made an amazing discovery by mucking up his experiment, by making a mistake and by getting things wrong? Yes?
Einstein.
Albert Einstein. What can you tell me about him?
I forgot some of the facts, but it's just a famous scientist.
That's a famous scientist, great. Albert Einstein is one of my favourite scientists because my favourite thing that Albert Einstein said is he said, imagination is more important than knowledge.
Wow.
He said, I believe in intuitions and inspirations. Sometimes I feel I am right. I do not know I am. And that, for me, is a really important part of science. It's about being creative. It's about using our imagination. It's about dreaming and wondering about the world around us.
Like, another little thing. If at first you don't succeed, try again.
Brilliant! And that really is a wonderful phrase that kind of embodies what science is all about. But I've got another favourite scientist. I've got lots of favourite scientists. Another favourite scientist. Who was that? Edison. Tell us about Edison, Mr. Man behind the camera.
Mr. Man behind the camera, yes. So Edison, he tried, 300 different ways to make a light bulb, and all of them failed. But he didn't think the failure as a failure. It was just another thing that didn't work, which got him one step closer to knowing what else won't work until he will get the one that does work.
Absolutely.
Wow.
Science actually shows that our brains...
Some of these live streamers are pretty clever.
Keep squeaking so much.
Yep.
Here. This way, it's still making horrible noises. Okay, that's not quite working either. Anyone know about sound? Point what?
So stand like this.
Nope. Behind the line of the speaker. Oh, that's a bit of basic physics. That's to do with amplification and interference. Right. Okay. So, one of my favourite scientists that I was telling you about earlier. So no, you were talking about Edison. Sorry, I got thrown off. Edison, great example of someone who tried many times to do something, but he didn't give up, did he? He kept going. And science studies have shown that our brains make more connections when we get stuff wrong and we learn and we try again than actually when we get stuff right. So really, it doesn't matter whether you're top of the class or the best person or someone who thinks they know all the answers. It's actually about just having a go. My favourite example of this is a scientist called Alexander Fleming. Now, you might have heard of Alexander Fleming, but Alexander Fleming was doing an experiment with bacteria. Now, he was doing this a long time ago, and he was doing it at a time where there were lots of people in the world who were getting very sick and very ill from bacterial infections that would kill them in hospitals. We couldn't just cure them like we do today. And now at this time, he was doing an experiment with some of these bacteria, and he was growing them on what scientists call a petri dish, a little plate with food on where the bacteria would grow. Now, he did something which you could probably think was a bit of a mistake. He sort of mucked up. What he did is he left his petri dish on the bench in his laboratory by an open window and went on holiday. Now, when you leave food by an open window and go on holiday, it rots, exactly. So this food went mouldy. And he got back from his holiday. I don't know if he actually went on holiday, but that's what I think happened. What's that? Thank you, give it for a sec. So he got back from his holiday, and he walked into his laboratory, and he looked at his little plate with bacteria on it, and he found it was covered in mould. And he went, oh no. I've made a mistake, I'm going to be in big trouble, I've messed up my experiment, I'm going to have to throw it away. But before he did that, he looked at it again. And he looked at it, and he said one of probably the most important phrases in science. Now, some people think an important phrase in science is, Eureka! I've got it! But no. By the way, who said Eureka? Anyone?
Archimedes.
You said it.
Oh, yeah.
Who did? Once or twice you said it.
Archimedes.
Archimedes said it.
There you go.
Archimedes said it when he's got his bar.
Live streamers,
and the
clever
water's got
guys,
over
eh?
the side, and he went, Eureka! I understand about displacement of water. However, what Fleming said, I think, is actually probably a much more important phrase in science, which was, oh, that's funny. Because he looked at this little dish, and before he threw it away, even though it was a mucked up experiment, so he thought, before he threw it away, he went, oh, that's a bit odd. Because what he found is around the bacteria, where the fluffy bits of mould had fallen on the plate, around those bits of mould, the bacteria had died. And he thought, gosh, that's a bit odd. Because at that point, there was nothing known that could kill bacteria. And he had the presence of mind, the imagination, and the ability to look past his mistake and go, this is very interesting. And him and his pals went on to isolate a chemical from this mould that was able to kill bacteria. Anyone know what that chemical was called?
Penicillin, yeah.
Anyone? Penicillin. Penicillin was the first antibiotic, and it went on to save millions of lives. So this just shows us, doesn't it, that science is about just having a go and trying stuff out. So, with that in mind, let's come back to this idea that you can block a tickle. So let's have a go and make a guess and try stuff out to see if we can figure out what the answer might be. So can anyone make a guess as to maybe how you could block a tickle? Yes. Was that? With more tickles? Oh, that could be good. So what, tickle the person who's tickling you? That could be quite cool, couldn't it? Yeah? Get a lot of tickles, so it kind of...
So we can see here we've got a ongoing a science lesson live with the kids.
So basically, you kind of make yourself immune to being tickled. So if you get tickled enough, maybe it doesn't tickle anymore. I love this idea. I'm not going to try this one out because it might take some time. Okay, yeah, go on. If you're already laughing, brilliant. So what we have here is what in science we call a hypothesis, an idea, a suggestion. And like all good science, when we have a suggestion as to what the answer could be, what do we have to do? We have to test it. We have to do a experiment. So, for my experiment, I'm going to need a volunteer. Now, before you volunteer, I want you to check two things. First of all, my volunteer needs to needs to be ticklish under your arms specifically. Second of all, you need to not mind being tickled under your arms by me, in front of all these people here, and in front of the cameras. So, mums and dads, if you're happy with this, live streamer, if you can just... Oh, he's gone over there anyway. We're about to do a really good experiment here, live streamer.
There you go. There's two of us.
Okay, great.
It's two of us.
Cool. So, mums and dads, as long as you don't mind this being possibly...
It's got a very short
videos that are public.
attention span.
So do we have a volunteer down here? Brilliant. Thank you. What's your name?
Lyra.
Lyra, nice to meet you. Okay, brilliant. So, we had a suggestion that to block a tickle, we could get you to just laugh already and then see if it doesn't tickle so much. I love this idea. I've never heard that suggestion before. So, like all good science experiments, the first thing we need to do is we need to make sure that this is going to be what we call a fair test. You might have heard of that phrase before. What it means is we need to make sure, in this case, that Lyra is indeed ticklish before we see if she can block the tickle, which unfortunately means you're going to have to let me tickle you just to check you're ticklish. Are we okay with this? Okay, great. So, if you turn around to face everybody, now in a moment, I'm going to ask you to put your arms in the air, and I'm going to count to 3, and then I'm going to tickle you under your arms. Are we okay with this? Mums and dads, are we okay with this? Okay, great. All right then, so Lyra, arms in the air. Let's give her a countdown. 3,
2, 1.
Is Lyra ticklish? Yeah! Then we can start the experiment. Okay, Lyra, so we had a suggestion, a hypothesis, that to block the tickle, we could ask you to laugh already. So I'm going to do exactly the same, but I want you to already be laughing, even if it's just pretend laughing. Ready? Yeah, laugh, 3, 2, 1. Oh. Was it a bit less ticklish? Wow, that's so clever. So what we've seen here is the power of sort of mind over matter. We can kind of distract Lyra's brain from by already like laughing to actually make her kind of be less ticklish to the actual tickle. Really clever. Have we got any other ideas of something even better that we could do? Yes.
So we got just gonna have a quick chat with some teachers here.
If someone's already taken you, then maybe that's a good point. That's a good point.
So what we got is we got a spontaneous science lesson going on with the children here in front of the Department of Education. If you've just tuned in, today is Monday. It's the autumn rebellion is over, but this protest was already planned. Probably one of the most important, really, because it's educating the future generation about the ecological and climate emergency that we face. There was a letter handed in to the Department of Education by the XR Educators that are made up of teachers, so vast majority of people here are teachers or work in education, and they've taken it very serious that there's a lack of compulsory education and guidance on what's actually needed for in the curriculum for the different subjects, not just science, but across the board and across the different ages. So let's have a spin around here to people who are blocking the road. How you doing?